Imagine standing at the edge of a wide, restless river. Behind you lies everything familiar: your past, your struggles, your ambitions, your fears. Ahead, across the water, lies something different. A place where the noise softens, where burdens lighten, where a quiet freedom seems to call your name. You long to step across, but the river is not gentle. Its currents swirl with uncertainty. Its depth hides what you cannot see. And so, like countless travelers before you, you hesitate. You wait. You wrestle with the impossible question: how do I cross? This river is not made of water. It is made of life itself, of suffering, of longing, of the endless chase for meaning. Every human being, whether they realize it or not, eventually finds themselves standing on its banks. We all sense there is another shore, a place of peace beyond the turbulence of existence. Yet so often we remain stuck, paralyzed by fear, unsure how to move forward. Why is it so hard? Why do we stand still when our heart aches to cross? Perhaps it is because of our attachments. We carry too much: dreams of wealth, the weight of reputation, the desperate need to be someone in this world. Each of these clings to us like stones tied to our back. And when we gaze at the river, it isn't just the current that frightens us. It is the thought of letting go of those stones. We whisper to ourselves, "What will I be without these things? Will I even exist if I lay them down?" And so, instead of moving forward, we cling tighter. The Buddha once said that life is like a burning house, yet most of us cling to the flames, afraid of what might exist outside. We mistake our suffering for security, our restlessness for vitality. And like a traveler staring at the river but never stepping in, we remain bound to the shore of sorrow. But if you listen closely, beneath the rush of the current, beneath the chatter of your thoughts, you can almost hear it. A subtle invitation. A call that is both terrifying and beautiful: cross over. The truth is, the other shore is not somewhere far away. It is not a mythical paradise waiting after death. It is a state of being available here and now for those who dare to loosen their grip on what holds them back. And yet, no one crosses this river alone. Every great traveler, every seeker, at some point encounters a guide, a ferryman, a figure who appears not to carry you forever, but to show you the way across. Sometimes this ferryman takes the form of a teacher, sometimes a friend, and sometimes the quiet voice within your own heart. But before you can meet the ferryman, before you can even step into the boat, you must ask yourself one simple question: what am I willing to release in order to be free? For freedom has a price. Not a price in gold or silver, but in courage. The courage to loosen your hold on the very things you once thought defined you. As you stand on the edge of this river, you might notice something. The water does not only represent fear, it also represents possibility. Each wave is a reminder that life is always moving, always changing, never fixed. And perhaps in that truth lies the first glimpse of liberation. The river is waiting. The ferryman is near. And the journey has only just begun. The river roars before you, wide and untamed. You stand there, still wondering how anyone could ever make it across. The current looks merciless, the distance endless. And then, almost as if the world heard your unspoken plea, someone appears. An old man, calm as still water. His face is weathered, yet peaceful, carrying the kind of wisdom that doesn't shout, but quietly invites trust. He stands beside a simple wooden raft, worn smooth by years of carrying travelers just like you. This is the ferryman. He doesn't boast. He doesn't promise miracles. He doesn't claim to carry you on his back like a savior. Instead, he simply points to the raft and says, "If you wish to cross, step in." There's something striking about his presence. He doesn't remove the river nor make its waves disappear. He doesn't pretend the journey will be effortless. Instead, he offers guidance. The raft drifts gently, carried by the rhythm of the river. For the first time, the fear of drowning eases. You feel supported, you feel guided. Yet as you run your hand across the wooden planks, another realization dawns. This raft is not magical. It is not made of gold nor carved from sacred stone. It is simple, ordinary, almost fragile, and yet it works. This is the Dharma. The Buddha compared his teachings to a raft built not for worship, but for use. A raft that exists to carry us across, not to be decorated, glorified, or clung to as an object of possession. Its purpose is clear, to help us reach the other shore. Nothing more, nothing less. And yet, how often do we mistake the tool for the treasure? We memorize words but forget to live them. We cling to rituals as if they alone could save us. We argue over doctrines, defend our interpretations, and sometimes even fight over which raft is better. All the while forgetting that the raft was never meant to be the destination. Imagine a traveler who finds a raft and falls in love with it. Instead of using it to cross, he builds a shrine around it. He polishes the wood, bows before it, and tells others how beautiful it is. But when the time comes to step into the river, he refuses to let it touch the water, fearing it might get scratched. What happens then? He never moves forward. He never reaches the other shore. This is what clinging to the Dharma looks like when we mistake the method for the end. The teachings are precious, yes. They are profound, yes. But their value lies in being practiced, in carrying us through, not in being possessed like trophies. The raft of Dharma is made from simple truths: impermanence, compassion, mindfulness, emptiness. Each plank is ordinary, but when bound together, they create something extraordinary, something strong enough to carry the weight of human suffering across the fiercest currents. And yet, the raft is not indestructible. If left unused, it will rot. If idolized, it will never fulfill its purpose. If carried forever, it will only become a burden. Its beauty is not in lasting forever, but in being exactly what is needed, exactly when it is needed. The ferryman glances at you and smiles as if to say, "Don't fall in love with the raft. Fall in love with the crossing." Because here's the paradox. The moment you truly understand the Dharma, you also understand that it must one day be let go. Just as a child eventually releases the hand of a parent, just as wings replace the nest, the raft is a means, not an end. This truth is both humbling and liberating. It humbles us, reminding us not to cling even to what feels sacred. It liberates us, reminding us that freedom lies not in possessions, but in the courage to journey forward. The raft is here. The river carries you onward, and in its creaking wood you hear the quiet message of the Dharma: use me well, and when the time comes, release me. The river narrows, its current calmer now. You feel a quiet relief as the raft glides smoothly, carrying you closer to the far shore. Gratitude swells in your chest. You know without this raft you could never have made it this far. But imagine this: you finally reach the opposite bank. You step onto solid ground. The ferryman nods, the raft has done its job. And yet instead of leaving it behind, you hoist it onto your back. You drag it through the forest, carry it up the mountain, even sleep with it beside you as if your life depended on it. How long before the raft that once saved you becomes the very thing that weighs you down? This is the danger of attachment, even to what is good, even to what once brought us freedom. The Buddha warned of this very tendency. He said his teachings were like a raft. Once you cross the river, you don't keep carrying it on your back. You set it down with gratitude and walk on freely. But the human mind loves to cling. We cling to ideas, to experiences, to methods. We cling to spiritual practices as if they were medals to display, rather than tools to be used and set aside. We cling to insights, replaying them in our mind, mistaking yesterday's realization for tomorrow's liberation. And slowly, the very practices meant to lighten us begin to feel heavy. Think of a person who once found peace in meditation. At first, it was simple: a breath, a pause, a moment of clarity. But soon they begin to measure every session. Was it deep enough? Was it as good as last time? Why can't I reach that bliss again? The practice that once opened their heart now chains them with expectation. The raft has become a burden. Or imagine someone who discovers compassion. Their heart blossoms, they help others, they feel alive. But then compassion turns into identity. I am the kind one, the spiritual one, the giver. They start to measure their worth by how selfless they appear. What was once freedom becomes another performance, another mask. This is how even the most beautiful teachings can become heavy when we cling to them. The raft is not the shore. It was never meant to be carried forever. The Buddha's wisdom here is subtle but radical. Do not mistake the finger pointing to the moon for the moon itself. Do not mistake the raft for liberation. Tools are precious, but only when they serve their purpose. When their time has passed, the highest wisdom is knowing when to let them go. The Ferryman watches you carefully as you consider this truth. He knows the hardest attachments to release are not the obvious ones: money, fame, power. The hardest ones are the noble attachments, the clinging to being good, the pride in being spiritual, the subtle grasping at the very path meant to free you. And yet, to truly step onto the other shore, to truly taste freedom, you must dare to put the raft down. You must trust that what carried you here has already fulfilled its purpose. Gratitude, yes. Reverence, yes. But no chains, not even golden ones. The shore is near. The forest opens before you. But to walk lightly into that freedom, you cannot be bent under the weight of a raft meant only for crossing water. The time is coming when you must release even this. The raft nudges against the sand. The Ferryman gestures and you step onto solid ground. For a moment you stand still, listening to the silence of the far shore. No rushing water at your feet, no struggle to stay afloat. Just earth beneath your soul, steady and firm. This is the other shore. But what is it really? Is it some distant paradise hidden beyond the clouds? Is it a place where suffering magically disappears? Or is it something much closer, something you can feel in this very moment? The truth is, the other shore is not found on any map. It is not a physical place but a state of being. It is the freedom that arises the moment you release your grip. Letting go does not mean abandoning your responsibilities or running away from the world. It does not mean indifference or pretending you don't care. Letting go means loosening the fist you've clenched around life. It means seeing clearly that clinging only deepens suffering while release brings peace. Think of a bird. When its wings are bound, it cannot fly. The bindings may be beautiful, silken ropes, golden chains, but they are bindings nonetheless. Only when released can the bird soar. In the same way, we bind ourselves with possessions, with identities, with stories of who we think we are. And then we wonder why we feel so heavy. Letting go is not about losing yourself. It is about discovering that you were never the chains, never the burden, never the story. The other shore is that discovery. It is the moment you realize you can set the raft down, that you no longer need to be defined by the things you carry. That freedom is not about gaining more, it's about needing less. And yet, letting go requires courage. Because we often mistake attachment for love, control for safety, certainty for wisdom. To release is to step into the unknown. It is to trust that you are more than what you cling to. Consider how many of us cling to relationships, not because they are healthy, but because we fear loneliness. We cling to success, not because it fulfills us, but because we fear insignificance. We cling to beliefs, not because they open us, but because we fear uncertainty. Letting go, then, is an act of trust, trusting that by loosening your grip, life will carry you where you need to be. This is what the Buddha meant by the other shore. It is not escape, but awakening. It is not rejection, but release. To let go is to live in the world fully, without being enslaved by it. As you take your first steps on the far bank, the ferryman does not follow. His task is complete. You glance back and see the raft resting by the water's edge. For a moment you feel a tug of nostalgia, should you keep it just in case. But then the truth rises in you like dawn breaking over the river. The raft was never yours to own. It was always a gift for the journey. So you bow in gratitude and leave it behind. The air feels lighter now. The path ahead is open, and with each step you begin to understand. Letting go is not the end of the journey. It is the beginning of truly living. You stand on the far shore. The river roars behind you, but in your chest there is quiet. The raft rests where you left it, the ferryman fading into the distance. For the first time you feel a sense of spaciousness, as if something heavy has fallen away and the world has opened wide. This spaciousness is not emptiness in the way we usually fear it. It is not a void, not a cold nothingness. It is the kind of emptiness that feels like possibility, like a clear sky after a storm. The Buddha called it sunyata, emptiness. At first, the word can sound unsettling. We are taught all our lives to hold on to something solid, an identity, a belief, a possession, to feel real, to feel safe. The idea of emptiness can seem like a threat, as though it takes everything away. But what if emptiness is not a loss, but a freedom? Think of a cup. What makes it useful is not the clay that shapes it, but the empty space inside. Without emptiness, the cup holds nothing. Without emptiness, there is no room for tea, no space for nourishment. In the same way, life's true gift is not in its forms, but in the openness within them. Emptiness means that nothing has a fixed, permanent self. The river is not always a river, it becomes mist, cloud, rain. The tree is not always a tree, it becomes ash, soil, new life. Even the self you cling to is not fixed. It shifts, it flows, it changes moment by moment. And in that realization lies liberation. Because if nothing is fixed, then nothing can truly imprison you. If the self is not solid, then its wounds, its fears, its attachments are not solid either. They too can be released. Emptiness is not about denying life. It is about seeing it clearly. It is about realizing that all things arise and pass away through conditions, like waves appearing and disappearing on the surface of the sea. When you grasp this truth, you stop clinging to the wave and start trusting the ocean. Freedom is not found in holding on. Freedom is found in opening your hand again and again until you realize there was never anything to hold. But let's be clear, emptiness is not nihilism. It does not say that life is meaningless. Quite the opposite. It reveals that life is infinitely interconnected, infinitely alive. When the walls of the self dissolve, you see more clearly how everything touches everything else. The tree breathes so that you may breathe. The river flows so that the fields may grow. The kindness you give ripples outward, touching lives you may never meet. This is why emptiness gives birth to compassion. Because once you see that there is no separate me and you, the suffering of another becomes your own, and the joy of another becomes your joy as well. And so, standing here on the far shore, you begin to understand. Emptiness is not the absence of meaning. It is the space where true meaning is born. It is the heart of freedom. The river behind you, the path ahead of you, both are empty, both are free. And in that realization, you take your next step into a life no longer bound by clinging, but opened by release. The old parable of the raft may sound simple, leave it once you've crossed the river. But look around at the world we live in today. So many of us are still carrying our rafts, heavy on our backs, dragging them through the streets of modern life. Our rafts just look different now. For some, the raft is wealth. Bank accounts, investments, possessions stacked high, symbols of security. We cling to them as if they could keep suffering at bay. Yet, how many sleepless nights are spent guarding these treasures? How much anxiety hides beneath the surface of success? The raft of wealth promises safety, but when clung to, it becomes a cage lined with gold. For others, the raft is identity. We define ourselves by titles, by careers, by the roles we play. I am the achiever. I am the parent. I am the spiritual one. We polish these labels as if they are shields against the uncertainty of existence. But when life shifts, and it always does, the identity we clung to crumbles, leaving us lost, wondering who we are without it. And then there is the raft of opinion. In an age of constant noise, social media feeds, endless debates, we cling to our views with a ferocity that feels like survival. We argue, defend, and divide, forgetting that opinions are just rafts, meant to help us navigate, not prisons to live inside. Perhaps the most deceptive raft of all is the spiritual self. The one that clings not to money or fame, but to being enlightened, to being the good one. We measure our worth by how calm we appear, how pure our practice seems, how many books we've read, or how spiritual our image looks online. But if we're honest, that too is just another raft, heavier perhaps because it hides behind the illusion of virtue. The Buddha saw all of this long before the age of smartphones and skyscrapers. He understood that the human heart has a natural tendency to cling. Whether to a wooden raft or to a digital identity, the pattern is the same. We grasp, we hold, and we suffer when what we cling to slips away. And yet, the truth remains as simple today as it was by the riverbank centuries ago. The raft is not the shore. So how do we set these modern rafts down? It begins with awareness, with asking ourselves, what am I carrying right now? What weighs on my back, disguised as safety or success? When you pause long enough to look honestly, you may realize the burden you've been hauling is no longer serving you. Letting go doesn't mean rejecting money or abandoning responsibility or denying your identity. It means no longer mistaking them for who you are. It means holding them lightly, knowing they can support you but not define you. In this way, you walk more freely. You work without being enslaved by work. You love without trying to possess. You practice without turning spirituality into another performance. The modern world is full of rafts. New ones appear every day, offered as salvation, promising happiness. But the wisdom of the Ferryman whispers across time, don't carry what was meant only for crossing. And perhaps the greatest irony is this: when you finally loosen your grip on these rafts, you don't lose life, you gain it. You discover that freedom was never in adding more, but in releasing what you no longer need. The river is behind you, but its lesson lives on. The art of letting go is timeless. Letting go may sound beautiful in theory, but how do we actually live it? How do we step out of the story of the raft and bring this wisdom into the messy, unpredictable rhythm of our daily lives? It begins not with grand gestures, but with small, quiet moments. Imagine you're in traffic, the car ahead moving too slowly. Frustration rises. You grip the wheel tighter, as if squeezing it could make the road clear faster. In that instant, you are carrying a raft, the raft of control. But if you take a breath, soften your shoulders, and simply allow the moment to be as it is, the weight lifts. The river flows on, whether you push against it or not, or think of a conversation with someone you love. They say something that stings, and your first impulse is to defend, to argue, to prove you are right. That's another raft, the raft of being understood. But what if instead you pause? What if you let the words settle and respond not with the need to win, but with the openness to hear? In that letting go, you create space for connection instead of conflict. Letting go is not about abandoning life. It is about meeting life without chains. You can practice this anywhere. Each morning before the day begins, sit for a moment and notice your breath. Feel the rise and fall, the simple rhythm of being alive. Inhale, receive. Exhale, release. The breath itself is a teacher of letting go, reminding you that you cannot hold even the air. To live is to let it flow. Throughout the day, notice where you grip. The phone you check 100 times, the thought that loops endlessly in your mind. The plan you insist must go perfectly. Each of these is a raft, and each moment you recognize it, you have a choice, to tighten your grip or to place it down gently. This is where mindfulness becomes more than a practice. It becomes a way of life. To be mindful is to see clearly, and in that clarity to loosen your grasp. It is to understand that life is not about controlling the river, but about flowing with it. But letting go does not always mean peace. Sometimes it feels like grief. To let go of a loved one, to let go of a dream, to let go of a version of yourself you thought would last forever. These are not easy crossings. They tear at the heart. And yet, even here, letting go is the doorway to freedom. Because when you stop clinging to what is gone, your hands are free to hold what is here. The art of letting go is not a single act. It is a daily practice, a rhythm, a way of living with open hands. It is choosing again and again to release the illusion of control, to soften the walls of the self, to trust the unfolding of life. And here's the mystery. The more you let go, the more life gives back. Joy appears in the spaces where you once clutched at certainty. Peace arises in the silence where you once argued with reality. Love expands when you no longer try to possess it. Letting go is not the end of the journey. It is the journey itself. So as you step into tomorrow, ask yourself, what raft am I carrying today? And am I ready to set it down? There comes a moment when the raft is gone, the river behind you, and the weight of clinging has slipped from your shoulders. At first, it feels strange, almost unsettling, to walk without the familiar burdens you once carried. But slowly you begin to notice. With every step, the ground feels lighter, the air clearer, the horizon wider. This is the path of true liberation. Liberation is not some faraway prize waiting at the end of life. It is not a mystical treasure hidden in a secret cave. It is the simple, profound freedom of meeting each moment as it is, without the chains of grasping and fear. To walk this path is to live with open hands. It is to love without clinging, to work without being enslaved by work, to serve without seeking recognition. It is to understand that nothing is truly yours, and yet everything belongs to you because you are part of it all. The Buddha described this as the middle way, not drowning in indulgence, not burning in denial, but flowing steadily with life. When you live this way, every ordinary act becomes extraordinary. Eating a meal is no longer just feeding the body. It is receiving the gift of countless lives: the farmer, the rain, the soil, the sun. Walking down the street is no longer just moving from place to place. It is touching the earth with each step, alive and awake. True liberation is not about escaping the world. It is about seeing the world so clearly that you are no longer trapped by it. And yet, the paradox is this: when you let go of the need to grasp, life itself becomes richer. Joy is no longer dependent on perfect conditions. Peace is no longer fragile. Love is no longer something to protect, but something that flows freely through you. Beyond the raft, beyond the struggle of the crossing, you begin to see that the river was never an obstacle, it was a teacher. It taught you the futility of clinging, the courage of letting go, and the vastness of the freedom waiting on the other side. Walking this path does not mean you will never face pain. Sorrow, loss, and change will still come. But instead of drowning in them, you learn to move with them, like a dancer moving with the rhythm of music. Suffering no longer defines you. It becomes part of the great unfolding, and you walk on, not as a victim, not as a prisoner, but as a free being. This is the heart of true liberation: to live fully, to love deeply, and to let go gently, again and again, until even the act of letting go disappears. The journey does not end here. The river flows on, and so does life. But now, you walk not in fear of what may come, but in trust, in freedom, in the quiet joy of one who has crossed. The river is quiet now. Its rushing waters, its crashing waves gone. What remains is silence, the kind that does not demand, does not push, does not pull. Just a gentle stillness stretching endlessly like the calm surface of a lake at dawn. As you stand there, you realize something. The river was never only outside of you. It flowed through your heart, your fears, your clinging. And now, in the silence, you see it clearly. The journey was never just about crossing. It was about discovering the freedom that was always within. The ferryman's lesson echoes softly. The raft was never the destination, only a means. And now, with the raft left behind, you walk with nothing but open hands and an open heart. Letting go does not mean you lose. It means you finally have space. Space for peace. Space for joy. Space for love that is vast enough to hold the whole world. Life will still bring its rivers. You will still meet sorrow, change, uncertainty. But now you know, you do not need to carry every raft, you do not need to fight every current. The art of letting go is the art of trusting that the river knows the way. And perhaps that is the quietest, deepest truth. Freedom was never about escaping life, but about stepping fully into it, unburdened, unafraid, awake. So as you leave this story, carry nothing with you. Not the raft, not the shore. Only the silence of the river, flowing endlessly, reminding you that in every moment you are free to let go, free to begin again. The river is silent, and so are you. If this journey has touched something within you, take a moment to breathe with it. Let the silence settle. And if these reflections resonate with your heart, I invite you to walk further with us. Subscribe to Zen Buddhism Wisdom, where we continue exploring the timeless teachings of the Buddha through stories that speak to both the mind and the soul. May the wisdom of letting go guide your steps. May peace find you in the quiet moments, and may your journey always be light. Until we meet again, Be well, be free, and keep flowing with the river of life.